Welcome to the batflipbombs podcast. Host Brock Myers, my co-host Connor Adams, as usual. Today we got some different stuff. We have more canonical stuff. We're going through what we think our field of 64 is going to look like. I got a few bones to pick, and we're gonna kind of see who we think is overrated, who we think's underrated. And I'm gonna ask Connor some questions. So to start off, I'm gonna go with my bones, and I'll flash stream, but one of my first bones I have to pick is a majority of college baseball teams. Lately, I've been seeing a ton of like the home run booms, and it's literally 3/4 of the team in the country doing the exact same celebration everywhere. Like, let's have some originality. Tennessee does it, and they started it, so they should do it because it makes sense, and they even do more. But that is just so unoriginal. Like, let's keep it going. Come on, be a little bit better than that. You guys are original, and then just do something that actually people like to see, other than you just hit your forearm with another dude.
That's not cool.
And then second thing, I also have, and you can trust you said you did in high school. It's another Tennessee thing, but running off the mound as a pitcher after the inning is over. I mean, that is just. I mean, how many big leaguers do you know that run off the mound after the inning's over?
None. I mean, there's none. I don't know. Our coach made us run off the mound, so like I guess I was used to it. But I mean, also my coach didn't let us throw around the horn because like if we messed up, it would be embarrassing. So like how it's different.
Yeah, like
you get used to it though. So like I guess at Tennessee, like I'm sure the kids like get used to it. It's kind of just like, oh, whatever, we do this. Like it laughs at us, but like I'm just kind of like, who cares? But it's one of those things that at first, when you first do it, you're like, I look stupid. And then over time, once you continuously keep doing it, especially if you're good. So like Tennessee's pitching staff is like good. So good and you do it, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like if I were to give up, if I were to go out there, and I've seen it before happen with someone that asked, where they'll give up like 5 runs in an inning. And they'll just run off the mound.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're at the most vulnerable. I think if you go out there and you get 4 or 5 in an inning and you're running off the mound, like, are you scared?
It just looks bad.
It's definitely not normal. I can tell you that much.
Like, what are we doing? Why is this happening?
I don't know. Again, like I went to a high school. I did this for my entire.
It looks like a high school thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. But I will say, though, I'm going to argue this. If you do that crap and you're nasty, people are just like, what the heck did I just...
Like, you're playing psychopaths.
Yeah, like, what the heck did I just, like, witness? Like, this kid just, like, went out there, struck out 10 people in, like, 4 innings, and he's running off the mound. Like, that kid's insane. I think in college baseball, like, especially with the atmosphere and... I mean, I'd probably leave it in high school.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine, like, a big pitch, getting your celebration in, and then you just sprint off the mound?
I think, honestly, I would argue that sprinting, like, literally sprinting to the dugout would look cooler in that situation.
It would look much cooler than the little girly jog.
Than the jog. Yeah, I think, like, if you... I mean, dude, that would be all over, like... It'd be all over, like, Instagram, Twitter, everything. Yeah. If some kid made a huge pitch, like, top 9, tie game, bases loaded, to send your team to the bottom of the 9th, strikes out a dude, if he just like screams and sprints into the dugout,
yeah,
like, I want that fire up everyone.
Since we got Mr. Burns closing now, I want to see him punch out the side in the 9th and just sprint as fast as he can to the catcher.
If he sprint dugout, I think there's nothing that would get a team more hype than that.
Yeah,
like that's like when you see like the hit by pitch. Guy gets up and sprints to first base, how electric that is. I would say that's like up there with that. Like in a big, I mean, it's just funny. You're like, who in their right huge moment, like you must be a psychopath. Yeah. In their right mind, in like a big moment, would just like get pumped and then just sprint like 70 feet into the dugout. That's wild.
That's wild. So and the next thing we're gonna go into is our field of 64, which you spent a lot of time doing it.
Yeah.
Tell us more about what you think of the field of 64.
Yeah, well, one, I'm going to say it was incredibly tough. I looked at no other publications field of 64, so I didn't look at D1s or college baseball or whatever, like, Baseball America. I didn't look at any of that. So, and after I made it and sent it to you and we looked at it, I was kind of maybe, a couple different teams I put in that they didn't put in. So I thought that was kind of cool. it's really tough. I think this year in general, picking 16 hosts is kind of tough in my opinion. I think there's like 10 really solid teams here. And then once you get into that like 11 through 20, 24 range, it's tough to pick hosts. Because I know, you have like teams that like Duke, for example, they're hot. We're 14-9 in conference, looking really good. I don't think it's like a team that any other given year, I'd be like, I don't know if that team's a host.
Yeah.
But, being second in the ACC, your team's definitely going to host. Like UConn, for example, 8-3 in the Big East, 33-11. But, with losses to like 2 losses to Ohio State, a bad year. They lost to Cal, who in my opinion is the worst team in the Pac-12. Just 8-3 in the Big East doesn't really scream, regional host.
No.
But, it's tough to pick those teams, so that was really tough. And then I do think there's a lot of solid 2 seeds out there this year. Like, just to go hand in hand with what I was saying before. I mean, if it's a hard time picking out 10 through 16, that means those high 2 seeds are all going to be really good. And plus, like, the field of 64 that we put out, that reflects it at this current time period.
Yeah.
For example, I think Tennessee, if they keep winning, they'll easily be a host. Just sweeping Vanderbilt.
Sweeping Mississippi State.
Yeah, being 6-0 in their past 6 games in the SEC is just tough in general. So I think with them continuously winning, you have Virginia, who I was high on the beginning of the year, which definitely paid off. And then now they're hitting kind of like a dry spell where their pitching's just... And so them being a 2 seed right now, you have them kind of like lingering around.
That's a dangerous 2 seed.
Yeah, especially if you're facing them in a regional. Like, if that team gets hot, it's going to be tough. I will say that I think my regional to put together was the one I did at UConn. I took Boston College. Like, I know some other publications have Boston College as their own regional host. I don't feel the same way. So I put them a seed against UConn's a little bit weaker of a host in general, and I think Boston College 2 seed. And plus in the area factor into things, I think, Boston College being there makes it tough for UConn. I think Northeastern is a 3 that I put in there, makes it really tough for UConn. And then Maine, I don't know, just been steamrolling the America East. That's just like a fun team to watch. You're just like, oh, a team from Maine doing pretty well. That's kind of weird. So I think that's kind of like my thing that I put together.
Yeah, I like that one.
Overall, I mean, it was definitely hard to do, but I hope you guys appreciated it.
Oh yeah, we definitely did.
Yeah. I think the biggest question though, in general, that I think can start a discussion is like, will Campbell host? Because it's kind of yes right now. Right now, yes, but I think there's more room for them to fail and drop out of that than there is to kind of go up. Like, I think they've proved everything they can up to this point. It's kind of like, you can't really go above and beyond. Like, yes, they can win their conference tournament, but
I would say if they win out conference games the rest of the year, which it would be really tough, then yes, they're going to host.
Yeah.
And they don't have to win the conference tournament that way, I don't think. I think it's the only way they don't have to win the conference tournament.
I think it's
win out the rest of those games.
I think it's tough. I mean, because
it's still tough, but I think that's the only way they could do it without winning the conference tournament.
I think, but if you compare it to the 18 Tech team, I think they're very, honestly, just in terms of like being in a conference at mid-league, they're playing really well. They're beating all their like out-of-conference opponents that like in the midweeks that they do. I think it's kind of what we did at Tech, and we were always around that bubble 1 seed in 18, and then we lost the conference tournament, and I think that's kind of really what separated us and what made us not be a 1 seed, because we lost that conference tournament. So I still feel like they need to win the conference tournament and not lose a series. Yeah. I mean, I think is there 4 or 5 weeks left of, I think it's 4 or 5. 5.
3 regular season, 1 postseason.
I have no idea. You might be right. But I think they need to like win 2, sweep 1, and then win the conference tournament. I think that they'll keep their hosting bid alive. But if they drop a series in that conference tournament, I think it's going to be a very big discussion by the committee. Yeah, they should host or not.
No, I agree, 100%. Then we have bubble trouble.
Yeah, I think this one's an interesting one, just because of what I was talking about before on if like the Big South, they're typically a 1 bid league. You have like the Big South, the A-Sun, You got Big East with UConn. You have Conference USA. If any other team besides Dallas Baptist and UTSA wins, that takes another bid away. And then you got the Missouri Valley Conference, who Missouri State's on the bubble right now, but for sure Indiana State's getting it. So it's like if any team besides those two teams wins, that takes another bid away. So I mean, you could potentially be looking at 5. I mean, and then factoring in the crazies, like the teams that you're like, all right, and like the big, not the Big East, like the Big Ten, if some crap team wins, if you have like the SEC's like and 10.
Was the Conference USA tournament or was it the American tournament? What's USF in?
American.
Oh, the one they.
Yeah, exactly. So you could have like and everyone makes the American tournament. So like literally the 8 seed makes.
Yeah, I mean they were the last team in.
Yeah,
they were number 8 seed.
Yeah, and we're not even counting those. So I mean, you could have like 5 easily potential bids taken away from the bubble teams. It's not even including like crazy wins from other like big power conferences. I think the bubble teams this year, like teams like TCU, Kansas, if you really look at it, I mean, even some SEC teams at the end, if you look at ACC teams like Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, they're all kind of in trouble this year, in my opinion, because if they don't kind of like win those last couple series, get themselves like a foot in the door, I think it's going to be tough for the committee to pick.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have like a handful of teams that are all in this like same area. And if you take more teams that are not in that conversation, throw them in automatic bids, then that bubble just gets bigger. Handful of teams out of that. So the bubble teams this year, guys, if there's anything that happens in this conference tournament.
The conference tournaments being so unpredictable, kind of, and we're talking about like all these bubble teams, we don't know who's going to win these tournaments.
Yeah.
What do you think the easiest tournament to predict is going to be?
In my opinion, the Summit. With Oral Roberts. Yeah. They're 17-1 right now, looking really good. They lost 1 game to North Dakota State, which and like they still one tier and lose. That's all right. Yeah, I think Oral Roberts. I think that's not even going to be.
I wasn't even thinking about that. I think I'm going to go with East.
You think?
Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty much a lock.
It could be. I mean, Xavier could beat them.
Yeah, they could.
They did take them in the series. They took 1. I do think Alabama State's pretty.
Yes, I was as well.
They're 18-3 right now. They're looking good. I mean, I guess Bethune in a series, and maybe it was Florida A&M or Bethune. Just one of the two. Front runner there. So
I would agree.
Oral Roberts, the most sense, honestly. I mean, they're arguably a top national seed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll huge. Yeah.
And then the next thing I'm going to give you, and we can talk, but we'll just kind of go right first. I've got a few teams. We're going to go with an overrated, underrated segment. I tell you team, you tell me over.
Yeah.
All right. UConn.
Overrated.
Campbell. You can go
normal.
Yeah, okay. Correctly rated. Maryland.
Underrated.
Louisville.
Overrated. Well, underrated now, overrated 2 weeks ago.
Fair enough. UTSA.
Overrated.
LSU.
Correctly rated.
Oral Roberts.
I don't know. Does anyone like underrated? I think they have.
Yeah, but I see them as in a bunch of the 64 predictions. Or we'll get Indiana.
Overrated.
Alabama.
Correctly rated.
Tennessee.
Underrated right now.
UCSB.
Underrated.
All right, so run me through those. So, Con, why do you think they're overrated?
If they're rated 20th in the country, they're correct. They're a team that you don't really want to have in your region right now. UTSA went because everyone loved them, had a bad couple of weeks that I think kind of shows maybe who they truly are. I don't know. I mean, they're still a good team, it's just that they haven't had as good of weeks as before.
Yeah.
LSU is just plain and simple. I think they're the best team in the country. Oral Roberts under because I think they're consistent. They're very consistent. They played well out of conference and mid. So I think they can make some noise in a regional. Indiana overrated. I know D1 has like the 12 national seed last week before the Maryland. They got swept. I mean, they're good. They're really good. I think they have potential, but to be a 12 national seed and to have Maryland sitting at 24, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think Indiana's overrated. Alabama, correctly rated. They're consistently above average. Ours might be somewhat of a question, but I think that they have a chance to make some really good noise as a 3 seed. I don't think break that 3 seed barrier.
Yeah.
But as a 3, I think they're gonna, cause teams some problems. Tennessee underrated because they're 6-0 in their last 6 conference games with sweeping Vanderbilt, which is incredible. Even though they were on a very, very dry stretch there for a little bit. But I think when you take all of that into account, them being a high 2 seed right now, no one wants that in their regional. Like, no one wants Tennessee in their regional. I think it's going to cause a lot of teams problems. And UC Santa Barbara, just coming from my favorites, I think they're pretty solid. Them and Fullerton are the top 2 teams right now in that conference. And, I mean, the Big West is competitive. And, the top 4 teams in that conference can make noise in the tournament. So I think they're underrated.
I like it. All right, and the next we're going to pick our most underrated and most overrated teams. We'll start with overrated. Give me your first team.
This is going to be a little bit different, where it's a team that's not necessarily doing great this year, but a lot of people still automatically think to themselves, like, oh, this team's good, which I think is TCU. Again, I'm going to reference D1 last week's field that they put out. They had TCU in it. TCU is currently 8-10 in a not super strong Big 12 year in general. So them being 8-10 there, I think they're like 24-22 maybe overall. Like, they're not great. I don't think that was a team to get in, so that's why I say they're overrated.
Yeah, I like that. My overrated team is going to be Oregon State. Just because I think they kind of hang around the top 25 just because of the talent they have. But when you look at their games and everything, I don't feel the resume to be a top 25 team.
Yeah.
Even though you feel like they should be.
You feel, I mean, everyone's going to have in their mind, like, oh, Oregon State.
Yeah.
But there's some truth to, the fact that, like, they can play with anyone, but they could also, like, truly play with anyone, like a bad team.
Yeah.
And, like, hang around with them, or, they can play a good team, hang around with them. You just don't know what you're getting out of them.
Yeah.
And for them to, like, consistently be in the top 25 is, be a little bit questionable.
Yeah, I like that. Now give me underrated.
So I'm going to go with 2. I have 2 underrated teams. I really like Washington. I think, people just think to themselves, oh, Washington's probably not very good at baseball since it's Washington. And I think, like, they're just doing really well this year. They're sitting 4 or 5 in the Pac-12. They had a good out-of-conference season. So I think, they have a lot of potential. I think they're going to make the NCAA tournament. And then when they're in the NCAA tournament, if they're going to make noise or not, who knows? I still think they're underrated. And then other one is Indiana, because Indiana State was on like a 12-game win streak before, and then I think they lost. They dropped one conference game to someone, and they like won the next 2.
Really good.
I think they're really good. The Missouri Valley Conference, they have them in Missouri State, and like everyone else is kind of like not as good, but it's still a solid conference, and for them to be dominating this year is pretty good.
And mine's gonna be more of a weird one because they are at the top of a lot of these rankings, and they're in the top. Like they're gonna be regional hosts most likely. It's gonna be Coastal. I think Coastal's bats are way better than anybody's kind of giving them credit for. I mean, everybody knows they're good, but I think once you get into a regional and you're getting down like thin on, everybody's gonna be thin on pitching at the end of a regional and at the end of a super regional. Like those bats are gonna come alive, and I think that's kind of what's gonna carry them. And I am gonna go out on a limb here. Don't quote me. But I'm going to say Coastal Carolina is the best team in South Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, hey, with how South Carolina is playing right now, they could be. South Carolina's not playing great. Yeah. I think, Coastal, like I said before to you, is a team that's like LSU, but they're not like LSU. I mean, I guess it's not the same as LSU, but they're like LSU in terms of they are really good. Everyone knows they're really good, but they keep finding a way to like drop one game a weekend. Yeah. In like their conference, it's kind of like just randomly.
Yeah.
So I do think they're really good. I think I feel like right now, you give it like another week and you'd be like, oh, they're definitely gonna host.
Yeah.
All the special.
I agree with you there.
Sometimes they don't implode.
and that's gonna be it for this week. Thank you guys for watching. Kind of got our first field of 64 out there. I like what we got. I like what we're working with. kind of nice to like kind of dive into each separate team and talk about what each of them's about. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.